that year was crazy because I had not made it. So that was, of course, today I look at it, with great fun. But I know I was in the dumps at that time. I had a similar experience in a Cadbury's. Yeah, so already spent about 10 years in corporate, doing very well, and there I go for my first factory role in Induri, Pune, and I thought I had done very well, but again, probation extended. Uh, so Sharad was there, of course. Sharad Gangal, if you know, he
Yeah.
was my boss at that time,
Hmm.
and I was like dumbstruck, actually dumbstruck. And there was the factory manager Raju Ingale, excellent men, of course, two excellent men who I have been kept in touch with them. And there were, of course, reason why they gave me in terms of extension, but it was crazy. The experience was really really low. But very nice that you talked about this. I think it's a very good thought. I think as authentic leaders, I think sharing of vulnerabilities is a very important part of a leader, and I think it's a very good start, Kalpesh. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Clifford, for sharing and opening up. Really appreciate that. Great. So this
May I
is,
go next,
yes,
Shripad?
Shripad. Yes, of course, Shripad.
Do we
Please.
have time, or we are starting with the
We
main session?
No, we have time. We have another couple of sharings that we can take.
Okay. This was when I switched my track from between graduation and post graduation. I took admission to post graduation in a completely different track, which was computer software that time.
Mhm.
And I was gung ho because I had secured the admission, cracked the entrance test, went there. And the first semester, there was the COBOL was the first subject to be taught, and it was something very new, and logic and all that. How can I equal to I plus 1? That was very difficult to figure out. And first quarter semester exam, I scored 6 out of 25, and my rocket came down a third on the ground, saying, boss, am I going to make it through? Because I have changed my track, now I cannot go back to my old track. How is it going to work out? So 6 out of 25, it was complete failure. It took me a couple of days to come back to the track, and then it did happen because that made me work little harder, more harder, or maybe more hard. Talked to people who were experienced, went to my father's office. My father was in IT, so went along with him in his office. So some experienced programmer taught me some things, and then it recovered. So next semester, it half semester it went well, 3/4 semester went well, and ultimately I cleared the course of 1.5 years with flying marks. And
Awesome.
that was the experience which brought me to the ground and made me work harder.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you, Shripad. Thank you for sharing. Yes, Shekhar, you can go next, but you're on mute, Shekhar. We can't hear you. Yes.
Is it coming through?
Perfect. Perfect.
In fact, this is something, since you mentioned about vulnerability, I want to talk about an acute moment of embarrassment, and that qualifies for an F. Last 3 months, people were suddenly saying, Shekhar, why are you raising your voice?
Mhm.
And I didn't realize that I was raising my voice. But it just so happened that I had a throat problem, went to an ENT. She put me on to, uh, asked me to take an audiogram. And the audiogram revealed that I had actually suffering from what do you call, noise pollution. The interesting discovery was that as my hearing got impaired, I started raising my voice on my own. I didn't know that the two were interconnected and that they were compensating. Of course, now they prescribed an aid, because of which I probably have come back now. But this was an acute embarrassment. That was a blind spot I was not aware of. Thank you.
Wow. Thanks. Thank you so much for opening up, Shekhar, and thank you for sharing. I think it just goes back to talk about uh, as Clifford I think rightly mentioned, that we all leaders have those phases. We're not expected just to keep climbing up the ladder. we go through those ups and downs. So we have time for one more sharing if anyone is keen and would want to share. For all the people who've joined, while the sharing was on, we're talking about a phase of our life when, we scored an F, or we consider as the down phase or low phase of our life. So anyone wants to go for one more person?
Kalpesh, my only fear is that I'll take an hour talking about my failures. That's the problem. But let me tell you the most funny one. I always had this problem of thinking too high about myself, and that's a very childhood kind of a problem. And so in my final year graduation, I was coaching all the other people to appear for entrance exam and JD interview. Okay, because we were all preparing for entrance and stuff like that. And I was the one who was the most serious about going for it, right? And the funny thing is that when the results came out for the CET, I was the only one who failed in my entrance exam, and all others whom I was coaching passed. And I had a tough time getting over that. And they were not even serious about going for the those kind of courses and stuff.
So no wonder how you got into coaching, Yogesh, because I think that's what you do the best. Then you make others successful. Thanks.
Now we can rationalize it, he's saying.
Now we can rationalize. That's what I do.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for sharing that, Yogesh, and thank you all of you who shared. I think this was the message that I probably wanted to do here, and it's come out very well. Is the intention is that all of us at some point in time go through those phases, and I think last year challenged all of us with regards to the way we would think, the way we would work, the way we would do whatever we do. And the beauty is that we are all here. And I think the beginning of today's session, while we do the manthan, I want to start with a big round of applause for ourselves that we sailed through. We survived through what probably disrupted a lot of us with whatever challenges that we had, but we are here, and I think it's a moment of celebration. So with that, once again, welcome all of you for the ICF Pune chapter's monthly session. We meet third Saturday of every week, and I think it's an evening that we look forward to connecting and bringing some some insights, some thoughtful sharing to our table. So without taking a lot of time, I would like to start with the basic acknowledgements that we start with. So anybody here in this month who's had their birthdays, can you just let us know when was your birthday, and we can all sing happy birthday for you, at least give you a cheers. So your birthdays, your anniversaries, anyone who had their birthdays during this month?
I had my anniversary on the Valentine's Day.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, great. So that was how many years completed, Rajesh?
27.
27 years. Okay, great. So
Congratulations.
Thank you,
Rajesh. And I think just 23 more years. I'm doing a streak right now where I'm interviewing couples who've completed 50 years of anniversary together.
Wow.
So wonderful. I think that's great. Anyone else on their birthdays, anniversaries during this month? Okay, let's go ahead and look at anybody who got their credentialing during this month. No, but I think while I think Hemant and Vivek, they're both not here, I'll take a moment to celebrate and acknowledge them. They are now both certified as mentor coaches. So they're both PCCs, and now they are certified mentor coaches by ICF. And I think that's a big round of applause and a value add to our chapter. Big round of applause. And I know, Yogesh, you've always been very vocal that I'm there to support anyone who wants to go for credentials. And I think I'll announce that once again, that team, Yogesh is there as a person to support. And now we also have Vivek and Hemant to reach out to, because they are certified. And I think we have all together miles to go as a chapter. Okay, great. From there, so we covered the happy birthday. We spoke about the last time I scored F. So let me talk about the theme Manthan coaching post-pandemic. I think this topic, and as a theme, why it was probably the right time for Vivek to pick up, or ICF Pune to pick up a theme like this, because globally, I think it's 1 year. The entire pandemic started in January, February last year, and by March is when we went into a complete lockdown. But it's about a year that we're completing with the COVID-19. And on one side, while a lot of us talk about the downs, most of us talks about the downs, I think there were some really good things also which came to limelight. For example, I have heard a lot of beautiful stories of how people and families came together, how societies came together, to help people and old age people, or to take care of children. How, our warriors that we call about, the doctors and the police and other people, came across with regards to, overpowering, if I may call, the whole COVID-19 situation. And also hats off to a lot of NGOs, individuals who went out of their way. Examples like Sonu Sood and Just Smiles Foundation, and a lot of them who went on the streets, putting themselves at risk and doing what it took for them to ensure that the community is taken care of. So hats off to all of them. And one of the things that we kept reading on McKinsey's insights, or on a Harvard Business Review posts, or during all the magazines, business magazines during that time, was the kind of stress that people went through, or the challenges that people went through. And suddenly they were looking for somebody who they can talk to, because the physical contact was gone, and they wanted to get in touch with somebody whom they can open up to, and just wanted somebody to listen to. And I think we as coaches are a privileged community to have been trained and to provide that kind of difference to the community, where we listen and help them bring out the best only through our listening and facilitating the conversation. So with that, let me take the formal opportunity to welcome all our three speakers today. So we have, let me begin with Clifford. Clifford is the Vice President HR, Business Leader, and Employee Relationships at Infosys BPM right now. He is based out of Pune. I need not even say this, but he's 26 years of rich experience through diverse cross industries, in research, in pharmaceuticals, in service, biotechnology, and the IT/ITES industry. I think you're an entire package for us, Clifford, and we look forward to hear from your experiences, and how you have helped Infosys overall and your entire unit to handle this whole situation. And of course, how coaching played a role, and what can be done now. I mean, how are you doing, and what are the things that you're looking at? So look forward to hear from you. Also happy to share that Clifford is a part of the ICF Pune chapter. He is a member of our team, and happy to have him here. We're looking forward to listen to you, Clifford.
Thank you, Kalpesh.
Great. So the other person on the panel that we have is Ravindra Kumar. Ravindra is the President and Chief Human Officer at Tata Motors. And I think, Ravindra, your face says it all. I think the calmness, the composure, and I think the charisma, I think that I have seen you for the first time, but I think you bring that to table. About Ravindra, he's the alumni of TIS, 22 years of industry experience, worked through Asian Paints, GE, and Tata Motors, and he's presently serving as the Chief Human Officer, Resource Officer, and a member of Executive Committee at Tata Motors, and a creative and result-oriented HR professional with particular interest in organization effectiveness. And looking forward to hear from you, Clifford. Hear from you, Ravi. Sorry, excuse me for that.
Thank you, Kalpesh. My pleasure to join all of you today.
Thank you, Ravi. And then we have our own Yogesh. So Yogesh, we all know he's a master certified coach. He's also a master's in human resource management. 27 years of experience in the area of executive coaching, international human resource management, profit center management, and leadership development. He's worked with Larsen & Toubro, RPG Group, Zensar, and Mphasis. He is a poet. He has a book that he's published as a poet, and I recommend all of us should read. I am still to get my hands onto it, but I know he writes beautifully, and he loves traveling. So thank you, Yogesh, for making time and for being with us.
Thank you so much, Kalpesh, for your attendance.
Great. So with that, I would like to call upon and request Clifford to maybe talk and tell us about the coaching post pandemic and his experience, his views, the future that he sees. And with that, over to you, Clifford. Clifford, I've activated the screen sharing. So if you want to do the screen sharing, yeah.
He's on mute.
Yeah.
Kalpesh is on mute.
Right. Clifford, you're on mute.
Yes,
We're
yes.
not able to
Got
hear.
it.
Yeah.
Got it. Just one.
And Clifford, you may also want to just put the presentation mode. We're able to see the PPT.
Yeah.
Perfect. We can see it. Clifford, over
Okay,
to you.
great. So good evening, folks. Thank you, Kalpesh. Thank you, Jayashree. Thank you, Vivek. I think Vivek is not there, but for inviting me to this very, very prestigious forum. I am pleased, feel privileged also to speak to this forum. I have actually attended earlier, these sessions, but not been frequent. Weekends normally are sometimes a lot more busier. But I'm happy to speak to some senior, seasoned, budding coaches, I think, and of course there are quite a few HR professionals here also. So while in my earlier prep, we had Jayashree and Vivek there and asking me to speak from a corporate perspective, and I believe that while as a part of the panel I'll be speaking, but I believe I have 4 roles in that sense. Number one, as an HR executive, of course, of an ITS corporation. Second, I think a coach itself. I do coach both within the organization as well as outside. I am also a coachee. Yeah, I have I have a coach that I regularly speak to. And of course, I am also the supervisor of a coachee in that sense, because one of my folks who reports to me is also getting coached, and in that context there are views which so therefore a lot of the views that I have here are summed up based on these 4 roles that I actually play. So to start off, I think 2020, obviously all of us know that was the year of a great amount of change in the world. One stroke of the virus and everything was under, right? And no travel, no commute. For all practical purposes, we were all locked down, and each one of us impacted. Each one of us responded in a very, very different manner. And I think the business houses also had their own way of responding, right? We had our own style, our own way of doing it. Of course, there were very clear priorities that were chalked out. But before that, I think, I remember at some point of time earlier, the question by a leader was always, where is that employee at work? Where is he?
No, take the tea.
Okay. So, the question was always by a leader, where is the employee at work? And now the question simply turned to say, why is the employee at work? Right? Because we actually had to take permission if we had to go to the campus. Yeah. So obviously employees and professionals have been forced to change. And of course, for example, those who were trainers, for example, and I don't know if there are some of you who are trainers, but for those who were trainers who were training in the physical world and not using much of technology, obviously it was a great challenge. And I know that there are a few trainers who are still going through a great amount of challenges training in the virtual world, because it obviously requires a totally different set of skills and mindset. Yeah? And I believe that, in that sense, coaches, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think have it much more easier in the virtual world, because it's, your coach is in front of you. Even if it's group coaching, I think that's something which is still pretty okay as compared to training, to ensure that even, for example, for a 4-hour program, for a trainer to engage, employees is obviously a great challenge virtually, because the guy will be going on to his own email. He can just switch off anytime. He can just kind of log off anytime if he's not finding it interesting. So maybe all that happened, of course, in a very staggered manner. But while and we are still, of course, experiencing, things, the silver lining is very clear that I think just like, those who've lived in Mumbai, right? Mumbaiites, they say, are unstoppable, right? But then that way, Chennaites also are the same. But in that context, I think that's a very silver lining. I think a lot of us have been, renewing ourselves, reinventing ourselves consistently. See, the world has now, I think, learned to live on the essentials, and companies like ours, for example, being the very backbone of our clients, did not stop serving them. As you know, IT, ITS industry, there are all sorts of, issues. One is 365 by 24 by 7, and of course, under restricted information access. And that is where the challenge remained. Whoever thought that, even the clients themselves were obviously, not really, who did not really give in very easily to ensure that our employees could go back to the home and work. Overnight, we had to, shift lock, stock, barrel into the virtual world. And almost every employee for us is a COVID worker, for all COVID warrior. We obviously also had that kind of recognition. Bottom line, the world is looking at, lessons from 2020, and I'm obviously going to be sharing specifically from a coach perspective. We still need to sail, go on big expeditions, and we can't expect, a calm sea. We have to prepare ourselves for possibly greater choppy waters. I mean, whoever thought, right? We all, I'm sure all organizations, who have business continuity plans, and, whenever there was a band in the early days, right, we would have, if there's one site closed, then we would, move the business to the next site, and there would be. But here, for all practical purposes, a lockdown for days on end, a total lockdown, how do you really manage? And how do you manage on a global scale? See, the pandemic situation has practically, I think, altered the external environment extensively, and it has impacted businesses, clients. I'm sure some of us also got greatly impacted. And the biggest challenge today is, I think, navigating through these very unprecedented situations. And for those who've been managing large sites, right, there were no clear-cut decisions that could be made, right? It was all decisions on the go, So therefore, in that sense, a great, upswing of the growth curve, and always challenges that, try to topple the kind of decisions made. The story has been the same, radically different, of course, every time. Businesses would not, earlier, of course, would know what were the challenges. Today, of course, it's very totally different. And I think we're still going through it for all practical purposes. Coming back to work, folks, of course, have all, gone out to their towns and villages, of course, ensuring that their Wi-Fi is, in place. So before I actually get into the main, subject of coaching, I'll just kind of tell you what exactly are those three elements which have, mainly changed for a corporate like ours, especially in the IT/ITS world. Work, the workforce, and the worker of the future. This has obviously, greatly changed. Yeah, very clearly we are in the process of creating this hybrid world. In any case, we are working in a kind of distributed and globally diverse teams. We must provide for work from anywhere. We must create safe working environments for those, where clients expect us to come to the campus. And for all practical purposes, the office space will now be very different for us, right? The entire employee experience today, right? A lot of virtual induction is happening in homes, ensuring that computers are reaching by courier, all those kind of very unique challenges. And yet, how do we still ensure that in spite of the new employee, the new joinee not coming to the campus, where we create a fantastic employee experience, today we still have to create that employee experience in the home. So, we will have to obviously explore, immersive technologies and for collaboration, and who knows, while we've heard, I have not obviously experienced or seen anything in terms of what they call the holographic telepresence. And that is one possibility, right? Evolving technology for full motion practically with real-time audio, with a level of greater amount of realism, like the physical presence. So these are definite, very clear challenges. They're not really signed off. They're not really something which we've invented as yet, but it's something which we are learning on the go. Now, this brings us to the very important point in our conversation. I think that people are at the core, and I think all organizations say that, we all believe it, that people are at the core of our business, and coaches, HR professionals, everybody talk about it. But I think at this period of time, I think two very strong priorities came for us. Two very strong priorities. One is the well-being of our employees, because without that, we obviously wouldn't be able to operate. So the well-being of our employees was the first priority. And the second priority is to ensure business success, right? Business of our clients, our business. And today, of course, ground realities are very different, right? We have been through this crisis. We are still on to this crisis. Globally, we are living in a very different world. So many business sectors, startups, industries have been badly hit. And you would have known already that a great IT giant, in India, and of course global, who has been laying off general managers and vice presidents by the numbers. Not maybe the pandemic, but maybe some influence of the pandemic. Obviously, there's a good amount of restructuring that is happening in that organization. But that's a reality, right? I can tell you in the last 1-2 months, the amount of folks whose CVs are with me is not funny, and at very, very senior levels. So in that sense, these realities have created, new scenarios, new challenges. So, and you look at the kind of challenges about, the new created scenarios. Number one, working extensively in a virtual environment, right? I mean, look at me. I mean, for some time I was, very recently, while I have a global portfolio with about 45,000 employees. But, I had an additional portfolio to that where I had to, manage a platform-based company in the US, which we had bought over recently. So, I start off sometimes, I used to, at least till recently when I handed over that particular portfolio, start at 7:30 in the morning, end at like 11:30 in the night. Obviously, that's, great amount of stress, great amount of, working in that virtual environment, working with distributed teams, right? Blurring lines, right? Personal and professional space. While there is a negative to it, obviously there is a positive, because today when we have recognition, we can include the family, we can include pets, we can include plants. So that's a positive to it. But then yes, it's blurring lines between your personal and professional life, because work has come into the home. Yeah. And like one of my leader, he's saying, if there is noise, if there are pressure cookers, don't worry, don't feel embarrassed, because we have intruded into your house. You have not intruded into the workplace. So I think that's a fantastic way of looking at it. Lots of uncertainties, obviously, lots of changes, action on real-time data and information. The fact that it's all virtual, everybody generally is coming on time, wanting data by at great speed, analyzing situations on a continuous basis, taking continuously crucial decisions which have great ramifications, and taking tough decisions. Then, of course, emotional, mental upheaval, very sad. In fact, may not be in the corporate world, but, today youth, I mean, in the last 2 days, I've heard of one 21-year-old and one 24-year-old, who has, decided to take his life and to take her life. So there are obviously a lot of stresses that are happening. Dealing with this very, very demanding clients and stakeholders, obviously, and while clients who are all across the globe are also for all practically working from home, but there is obviously pressures from clients. Running complex, they themselves are running complex businesses. They themselves are grappling with the change. New business models are being emerging, fostering innovation in this kind of virtual world. And of course, individuals and teams are, experiencing a lot of pressure. I put this whistle there because, a whistle, when is a whistle blown, right? It's, the start of a race. when somebody's reaching the finishing line, or when there is somebody crying foul, or there is some amount of encouragement or some kind of celebratory mode, right? There's that whistle blowing. And I think I just wanted to extrapolate that example of a whistle as a metaphor to the coach, being the whistle of corporations and businesses.
So sorry to interrupt.
Sorry.
Clifford?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
We suddenly lost your voice.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, it's been consistent, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, great. So, I'm using this metaphor of the, of the whistle for a coach, because I think a coach, plays an important, element there, as a whistle for corporations and businesses. Business needs coaches, very clear. And I don't think, you have any doubt in your mind, but I'm just trying to, share in terms of my own context, to help draw very clearly, achieve and identify goals. Support, for discovery of new ideas, and especially in this kind of a context, asking those smart questions which will help an individual, and of course help make life-changing decisions, because especially in these kind of context, helping overcome limitations, because the pandemic, of course, has not only impacted physical health, but of course the mental health, and that you are already aware. So coaching isn't being considered, just and of course, I don't consider it as therapy at all. Okay, let me tell you, obviously for me, therapy is meant for counselors, right? To manage stress, fear. For me, the way I look at it, it's, for a counselor who's trained. However, coaches are being expected to be doing product development, and obviously the product is people. Yeah. So if I were to sum up of the role of a coach, and especially today, in today's changing times, I think it's about future proofing the employee. And I think that's, real essential from a corporate perspective. So what is the need, for corporations today? And I think this is a very powerful slide, the way I look at it. And I believe that, I think it's almost my last slide. I think codifying of resilience and building resilient leaders and resilient teams is the need of the hour. Very clear. Making real, visible, measurable differences in people's lives, which obviously have an impact on, on business performance. Because if that doesn't happen, then obviously, it's, from a corporate perspective, it's not making sense. And I think very important is to help design actions to facilitate results. I think the coachee engagement, the coachee productivity, and of course, excellence in business is something that is, being expected from coaches. I know it's not a 7-course, it's not a fast food item. Yeah, it's not a fast food. It is a 7-course meal. And I'm sure the coaches will all like that word, 7-course meal, right? Because it is not something which will happen overnight. You require time. So business sees coaching, as very personalized development stroke. It's a personalized development stroke. And I think we see leaders being more open and vulnerable, knowing that this will help them unlock their potential. And I think, Kalpesh starting our entire discussion with, talking about vulnerabilities, I think was a fantastic. I don't know if you understood the impact of, what you did. Very small, but, I think this is exactly what coaches are expected to do, because, and especially in these times, right? And especially I think leaders go through this phase when, juniors expect the leader to lead, but the leader himself the leader herself does not have the answers, right? She herself is grappling, right? And at this moment of time, you have to, you have to display your vulnerability. You have to display that, this is my opportunity to unlock my potential and unlock your potential and achieve greater heights, both from a human angle as well as from a business angle. So all executive coaching, the way I say, have definitely picked up the way I know it. I know it's in my organization too. We have, of course, internal trained coaches. We also, engage with coaches outside. And the expectation in person, of course, the fact that we are not meeting in person, the fact that we are not traveling, obviously that, obviously adds, a positivity. While I'll talk more during the Q&A session, I think here lies the very redefined role of the coach. And I think with that, I will stop. So over to you, Kalpesh. Thank you very much for listening.
Clifford, thank you so much. I think that was a wonderful summary. And what I'm amazed is the journey that you took us through, and where you ended with regards to the resilience part of it. I think can't agree more to that word. Resilience is something that we all need to not only build resilience for ourselves, but I think it is also going to be very much required for each and every person, human being that we speak to around us.
Absolutely.
To help them build their resilience, because it's now not only limited to just the employee part of it, but every human being around us will need to build their own resilience. So Clifford, thank you so much. One message to all our members here is we're going to take the question and answers towards the end, but feel free to put them down on the chat window, because that will not let the thought go away. Whatever question you have for Clifford, for any of our panelists, keep sharing that on the chat, and we'll pick up towards the later half. And just before I request Ravi for you to pick up, I want to take this opportunity to also share with all of you, Clifford, the exercise that we just did. The last time I got an F. So at 4:20, when Jayashree said, Kalpesh, how about you moderating the session? I was having a cup of tea with my 12-year-old daughter and my wife. And I just asked, I said, you know what, we're going to start this session and it's about Manthan and coaching, but I want to do some exercise which can relate to today's scenario. And my 12-year-old daughter, she came and said, Papa, why don't you ask them, how did they feel the last time they scored an F?
Wow.
And I was taken aback. So I want to acknowledge that, Clifford, you mentioned about younger generations and the kind of thought processes they bring to table. A 12-year-old could relate to what we're going to talk about today in the session and give me the idea of doing this. So I'm going to pass on that acknowledgement to her for sure about this. Great. So thank you once again, Clifford. Ravi, over to you, and look forward to hearing from you on how you as an individual and Tata Motors as a company dealt with something like this.
Thank you, Kalpesh, and once again, folks, good evening. Thank you for the opportunity. I do not have a presentation. I will just share my thoughts, right? And I would like to share a little bit about the context of how I personally and Tata Motors has experienced the last 9 odd months, because I believe that our organization's approach and perhaps my own thoughts have been very much shaped by it. So our presence in terms of across the country, we have 7 very large factories, a couple of small ones. We are, because it's an automotive OEM, sometimes we almost influence the local economy, community. Example, Jamshedpur, we have a very large township of over 1,000 houses. Plus, we employ a lot more employees. In terms of our workforce, we have about 48,000 employees. A part of it is, temporary workforce. Given the nature of the automobile industry, we have a lot of temporary workforce who there are ebbs and lows that happen in that. There's a reason why I'm sharing this with you. And I'll mention it as I go through our context. So look, the automotive industry, the first quarter was we were switching over to a new emission norm. So the whole automotive industry was expecting that what we call as a pre-buy, a lot of buy will happen in the old or the earlier emission norm vehicle because prices go up in the new one. But when the pandemic hit in late February, March, those months were very bad for the industry and also us. Come month of April, our sales were in a handful of numbers, while we typically sell in thousands. Right? What does this mean is, now I think we've probably come back and settling into the new normal. But imagine wherein there were points wherein there was almost close to zero income for the organization, and we still had our vendors to pay, our employees to pay. I'm sure all of you experienced it. It's not unique to us, but it was quite a big challenge for us as an organization, I must admit. Right? I think, initially the idea was that, well, this is going to be a few days of lockdown and we'll all go back to normal. But over a period of time, I think we all understood that there is a new normal. There is no normal, no longer going back to a normal. It had we closed down our plants very early on. We closed down our offices very early on and moved people to work from home. In fact, we did it even before the government asked for a lockdown in our factories, etc. Because we have an average footfall in our Pune plant is about 25,000 people in a day, vendors, suppliers, also. So we had to take certain action like that. So we went in very early. Now I come to the point of, why did I mention the temporary workforce? See, within the first couple of weeks, and actually again, even before the chairman, the Prime Minister requested for it, the chairman of the Tata Group took a decision that we will continue to pay all temporary workers and contract employees till the lockdown is there, right? This was a decision that was at a company and a group level. The same directive was that we need to pay our small vendors first because we want to support them, right? That's the other decision we took. So we paid every temporary and contract employee till the lockdown was finally lifted. If he was on the rolls of the company the day the lockdown was announced, we just continued to pay them. Even if their last day was somewhere in between lockdown, we paid them till the end of the lockdown. So why do I mention this is that the lockdown has had a huge impact on the social, psychological, and emotional, being of our employees. And in this context, I would also include our temporary and contract employees, right? So if you look at, our employees, right? I think first I'll talk about social. Look, work, actually, all of us know today we spend longer hours than with our families. It defines a social network. So there was alienation from your social network, right? And not incidentally, I think one of the things that, I noticed, and it's a fact, is that the younger generation who live alone, it had a bigger impact on them. Because, those of us who live with families, who have children, at least we had a, social network to continue us, right? But those who lived alone and youngsters, they had a really, really tough time, in addition to just the infrastructure, restaurants closing down, maids not coming, the whole thing. So they were in a very, very difficult phase. It, of course, had impact on psychologically because, Clifford mentioned companies laid off people. I think they did because they were a really tough time. No one goes home and says, I laid off 10 people. It's not something anyone prides ourselves with, but companies did it because they had to. I believe people did the best they could. But psychologically, there was a huge thing about what does future hold, not just about the job, right? I think there was a phase that all of us went through, and therefore it had an impact on the emotional one. Why I talk about this is because this obviously made different demands of our people leaders, and of course, senior leadership in the organization. So employees went through a difficult phase, social, psychological, and emotional levels, right? So at an organization level, we offered counseling services. We tied up with a vendor. We offered counseling services not only for employees, but also for their family members. And the amount of calls that the agency received, while we don't receive who made the call, unless there are suicidal tendencies, which we did receive a few phone calls, but otherwise the agency gives us data on what kind of questions are coming, etc. Right? It was very interesting. Interesting in the sense that it gave us the opportunity to say what else can we do, but variety. As parents, as caregivers to elderly people, as couples, just as employees, I think there was a whole thing you could see that the pandemic was impacting. See, this all impacts how the employee, presents himself at work, how he presents himself or herself with their colleagues. So this was something that now I begin to talk about managers. See, the managers, I think, went through, and they are still going through a very tough phase. It's not easy being a people manager in today's context, right? Because first, you have to manage the employee, right? So yes, work has gone to the home, so we expect managers to manage that, right? We have made an intrusion, we have to accommodate it. Absolutely right. The second one is employees are going through all these emotional, challenging times. So we have to be empathetic. We have to take care of them, right? All this is good. But at the same time, we expect managers to make sure all the work is happening, right? On the one hand, you handhold the employee. On the other hand, I don't think there is a let off on what the organization wants to do. It is work actually went up during the pandemic period, right? Hours of working became very long, and we also had to realize it, and we had to talk about it. But did we really overcome it? The answer is no. Somehow work expanded, right? Employees talked about their boundaries not being respected in terms of the hours in a day, in terms of simple lunch break, in terms of a weekend. Somehow we all mistook working from home to be working 24/7, right? And I think this is because also now I was talking about managers, right? On the one hand, they have to take care of their employees, but at the same time, work has to happen. How do you manage the work of then how do you manage your own work as a manager, right? You have to do a check-in. You have to make sure that you show empathy. You manage the emotion of the employee, but get the work done, and also you do your work, right? And finally, you manage yourself, because even your maid is not coming. You are working from home and you have to take care of your child. And if you have a working spouse, the two of you have to manage multiple things. And look, I think many of us may have experienced it or heard of it, but when you had aged parents, or you had parents or others in the family who needed care, and when you didn't have any support that we in India are so dependent on, how do you manage this? So managers went through, I believe, an extremely difficult time, right? And I think if we talk about what is the need as an organization, and what I see as a huge need for coaches or for coaching, this is the aspect of being a people leader in this time, I think is a very tough one. There have been other changes in an employee-employer relationship. The first one being, that is the home as an extension office. Clifford talked about it, so I won't go there. I will talk about another one, which was, see, up till last year, work from home was a privilege extended to an employee, right? An employee said, I want to work from home. We said yes or no, we will decide this. Now, overnight, it became an organization need. It is no longer a privilege for an employee to be extended by the organization. It became a business continuity plan. We sent desktops to people's homes because we wanted them to work from home. Completely rewritten the rules of the contract between an employer and an employee, and how it works. So how do you enable a manager overnight to appreciate and operate in this new social contract that we have, right? This I relate back to 24/7 intrusion into home. All this comes as an absolute package deal. It is a googly for a manager, absolute googly for a manager to be able to do this, right? And also, look, we've been on a work from home mode for a long time, and then we brought the factories back online. So just to tell you how we also evolved, see, we make while hats off to all the folks in essential services and government who kept going to work every day, medical staff, etc., and some, I think, also other jobs went in. We first opened up our services, through our dealers and our own service shop, because we needed to help movement of goods. right? So that got opened up. In manufacturing, we make ambulances, so that got opened up, right? There are certain processes which are continuous processes, so we had to keep those going, right? Then we slowly brought manufacturing online. We exempted anybody who was comorbid or of above certain age. We just kept them home, right? And we managed to do that. Later on, our sales people and service people started working from home. And just from 1st February, we opened all offices at Tata Motors. And what we have done is we learned, and there are different definitions of a hybrid model. So let me share our model. We moved to a model wherein jobs that have to be done at a workstation, be it manufacturing or testing, right, product, they have to come to work, right? Or an HR manager in a factory has to come to work, because that can be done only at work, is what we believe. Other jobs that can be done away from work, we said twice a week you have to come to work. Rest of the time, work from anywhere. Some organizations have gone completely remote. Why I'm sharing this is, see, the first 3-4 months, we found it surprising that we were able to switch into remote working very easily, right? But over a period of time, we began to recognize that what we had begun to miss, and by the way, we also onboarded some new employees in the meantime. The reason we worked very effectively in the first few months when we switched over is because of the social connect and the social capital that had been built in the organization for years. That needs to be sustained, right? And when you talk about brainstorming, when you talk about collaborating, getting together is important. And I think also employees somewhere felt we want to get out of the house. We want to keep them safe, but we do. So we have reopened our office. We have said February and March come once a month to get used to it. And from April, not for the pandemic, but permanently, Tata Motors has shifted to a model where you have two kinds of approach to work. If your job has to be done at workstation, please come to work. If your job doesn't require you to come to office, you have to come twice a week, discuss with your manager. Now managers have done permutation combination. Someday the functional team comes, the other days the team members come with the client group. So we have left the managers manage this, right? Why I mentioned this is we've had to work with the managers, and we are still working with the managers to adapt it. So what kind of adaptation, right? See, ours is a 70-year-old organization, right? And we have multiple sites. So while we have a culture, there are subcultures. Jamshedpur is very different from Pune, right? So we have, and it's interesting, we do some cutting edge work, for example, e-vehicles, completely homegrown e-vehicles. So that cannot be done unless you have an innovative mindset and agile way of working. But we also have, employees who work with us for 40 years. They're used to a certain culture. We have a full spectrum in the organization, right? So early adaptation in one end is faster than the other. You can imagine when you have a large organization, many of you have, it's going to happen. So what are some of the challenges, or what are some of the changes you're beginning to see and helping managers, right? Earlier, I think the conversation has to, and we are helping shift the conversation to activity is no longer the focus of conversation. It's actually the results, the output, right? Flexibility, because earlier, I think I must say, we may have had some managers who, believe that you should start at 9 and end at 5. You should come and check in, or they would go and check the kind of work people are doing. It's no longer possible, right? You can't go and hover around your employee. You can't go look over the shoulder. How do you get managers to accept this? A lot of discomfort, right? So why I mentioned this is, as we've transitioned from completely work from home to some people coming back, and you can imagine all kinds of conversation happening in an organization. Factory people say, but why should I come to work? Or there are certain sections of factories say, why I should come to work when someone is not coming to work, right? So we've gone through this transition, and this has kind of happened. While this is what has happened in the, in the organization, the other thing is when the pandemic hit us, right? And we began to restart the operation. By the way, different state governments had their own regulations, right? So what I saw is the amount of empowerment and delegation of authority, which is a dream for any organization in today's world to make it contemporary, and a challenge all of us HR leaders deal with, it took into a life of its own. You didn't have to push that agenda anymore. There was no way you could control what happens in your different factories. So people kind of came to life. They took their own decisions, and I think we will never go back from that anymore. It's very difficult to take it back. People declared independence in a very good way. And I think that was a very big change that we saw. So how do you help? You need a pitcher and a catcher for empowerment. How do you help that kind of empowerment? I think is another challenge that we have faced. All have not been great stories. Balls have dropped. How do you work through it? The question on, or the quotient of trust, right? How do you make sure that that continues? I think that's an important piece that we have seen. So, so what changes, and I just also want to just briefly touch upon overall, my own conversations with people, myself also. I think we have realized how small we are in life, each of us as an individual, right? I'm sure for most of us, questions have appeared in our mind that, how big the universe is, how much is out of our control, how, I think we are all mortal in a way, right? So I think humility is something that by and large people, they call it humility or not, but people have realized that we are a speck in the universe, right? The second one is also, I think, when I talked about small, is also something big. Suddenly people's hearts became so big, right? The amount of story that you read, and Clifford also mentioned that, right? It's unbelievable on the kind of things some of my colleagues have done, I've read in the news, seen in my community. So people realize how small they are, hearts expanded. The third one is, I think also people raise larger questions, right? Questions around purpose. What am I? Where do I want to go? I think they became very common, not just at office, with friends, with family members. I think everyone went through those 45 days of a tough period, a lot of lock-in, a lot of reflections happened. All of it comes to work because people begin to question whether this is what I want to do, right? What is the purpose of the organization? How do you connect, right? Those came in. So what does it mean for coaches? Now, by the way, not necessarily certified, but many of my HR colleagues also coach people. They may not be certified, but as HR leaders, we coach. Some of us successfully, some of us not successfully, but right. Conversation and questions around compassion and empathy. Because when employees are going through the difficult challenge of social, psychological, emotional challenge, I think empathy and compassion is good. So how you?
ये भी ले लेना था। ये दोनों हाँ वो ना नया लाया तो एक बार धो दो।
The second.
Maybe you have gone on mute.
Maybe you're going on mute.
Okay, sorry. So the other one is inclusion, right? In the virtual world, inclusion has a very different challenge, right? When we have meeting and everyone participating, how do you make everybody participate? Sitting in front of a camera the whole day is difficult, but when you switch off, why do you switch off, right? How do you get people in, right? We've had to do it I think all of us have been challenged. So inclusion, purpose, I briefly mentioned purpose, right? Resilience for managers. I especially talk about managers, of course, everybody, but I think managers, my heart goes out to my people managers. Tough, very tough time, right? Work-life balance, your own and your team, agility. Oh, those, even today, but I think the first 45, 50 days have been a lot of changes and shifts happening. Every function, right? From the finance team, which had to arrange for payments to the HR teacher take care of people, to the sales team, to the everyone, right? Then people did not call it vulnerability, but how do you help them realize that is what they're experiencing and how do you deal with it? And I think these became questions for organizations to deal with. What I have seen happening in the coaching space, see, at Tata Motors, we had coaches, long-term coaches for select leaders. And it has been more for development rather than fixing it. I think even my predecessors had made the change. I've been here for a couple of years. So that coaching continued. When employees went for specific leadership program, they used to get 2-3 coaching sessions. That is broadly what we did. There was a lot more requests for and openness to accept coaches, right? We found a lot of people saying, look, I need a coach, right? And we have done more of those. The second one I would say is that we have begun to experiment with team coaching, which is something we have not done. Maybe we are late catching up, but we are doing more of team coaching. I must also acknowledge that the coaches who have been working with us, right? I think what I truly appreciate in them is that they themselves have been reaching out to teams or people they work with. I think that is the coach's ethics, right? I think they have done a wonderful job of reaching out and staying in touch and helping our leaders wherever the associations were there. They have done it. I'm truly grateful for all the coaches who work with us who do this. The second one, I also must tell you that not all, but many of the coaches we work with, they reached out and said, Ravi, this is not about contract or financials. How can we help? And there were groups we work with, they just reached out and say, look, we have this capability. Don't talk about money. Tell us how we can help. We can always fix these things later. I think it is the privilege of an organization and those both sides, right? Tata Motors and Tata as a group and these organizations that we work with. I can only, I don't think people just today can take credit for it. This has been relationship built over many years. And these are the part of the bigger heart that I spoke earlier. I had a chance to see the heart this way also. So if you ask me, the acceptance of coaching is more people asking. So there's more pull factor today, right? Earlier coaching was also seen a little bit as a problem fixing. I think this has really changed that to a great extent. And I think the conversations in general have moved more from performance to actually self-coaching. That is what I see happen. And I think that is where is the opportunity for all of you and us to work. So Kalpesh, those were my few thoughts. Actually, more than few. I'm sorry if I took longer than what was planned.
I think amazing, Ravi. I think it's a big round of applause. And I can only say it was probably a point where we could have just kept listening to you, Ravi. You know, not only for these 2 hours, but I think the stories that you're talking about and the reality of what people have faced through, what companies have faced through, and I could relate so much to what you spoke about managers. You know, during this phase, you know, forget it's my clients, but I was coaching or talking. I'll not even say coaching, but I was personally connecting with a lot of my family and friends who are at managers or who are at certain positions where employees had their own challenges and risks, and the businesses wanted the outcomes that they wanted because both of them were critical. And I think that was, there was that balancing that was constantly required to deal with both those pressures. Some amazing learnings that Ravi you've mentioned, and I think I had about 3 pages full of learnings that I jotted out of what you spoke. So thank you for actually sharing and giving us the insights that you gave. Being a TCSer for about 12 years, a Tata Group member, I know the core of Tata, and I've had the privilege to meet N. Chandra at a couple of sessions. You know what you said about taking care of the temporary workers and the small vendors first is something that talks about why Tata is who Tata is today. You know, the minute you name Tata, the first thing in the whole zehen mein jo baat aati hai is trust and is reliability. So thank you for sharing all this, Ravi. I think that was very insightful. And team, as you know, I see a lot of questions coming up. Please feel free and keep posting those questions. I also see a lot of guests who have come and joined us today. while I may not know all of you personally, but welcome and happy to have all of you here. I would like to, call out Manjiri. Manjiri, thank you for being here with us. I remember because I've been a part of Manjiri's book launch, I think almost about 10 years back, and glad that she's here today. So great, thank you all the audiences who are here. We'll continue with the session and have Yogesh give us his insights and his experience, and then we'll pick up the questions and more sharing. So Yogesh, over to you.
Thank you, Kalpesh, and thank you, everybody. As I stand between two fabulous presentations and your weekend, let me make some sense. When I accepted this invitation, the selfish motive was to listen to Clifford and Ravi for a very simple reason, because the organizations they represent, I think we have a lot of respect. I mean, I lived in Bangalore for 2 years, Clifford, between 2001 and 3. And you should see how an organization can be respected in a city. And Ravi, my mother comes from Pune. So in a childhood, when I used to come to Pune, I always thought everybody works in telco. So that is the kind of an aura those companies have in our mind. But more than that, I think we heard two great individuals, not just two brands, but thank you so much. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to talk about the business of coaching. Many of us are here, while there are some HR people. We are, while you heard Ravi and Clifford talk about from the corporate side and how things have happened, I'm going to talk about what happens to the. I actually hesitate to use the word entrepreneurs also when I'm talking about myself, because I proudly work in a 2-people company. Where I'm a junior partner in a company which my wife runs. So, how do people like us survive, and what is the learning? So let me begin with my presentation. I just loved the topic Manthan. And it is phenomenal, because in our mythology, Manthan has a very specific meaning. It's a churn between the Devas and the Asuras, and I think. The last year was all about the churn between our optimism and pessimism, and that's the way I look at it. And as the Manthan has a lot of good and bad things come out, and that's why I think whosoever chose this title Manthan is just amazing. But I think last year has been that year of the churn, and I think the year where a lot of learnings have happened. Now, what I'm going to talk about is that what has been my journey as a coach in this year, because I was again. Sitting on the other side of the table this time, operating as a coach, as a small company. My fundamental belief is, I'm just trying to move my slide, but okay. I think both of you mentioned, I think in different words, the foundation of coaching is vulnerability. I think coaching happens only when there is a vulnerability, and I think. When the year began, it's very funny, and why I like the word Manthan is that I remember March first week, I was sitting like a happy tomcat who had just licked the cream, because I had booked 80% of my business for this year, and 80% of a business booked in a consulting for next year is like, you're like almost like done. This was March first week. March last week, I could not figure out where that 80% is gone. Okay, and that's a roller coaster ride. Okay, so from being an absolute ecstatic person, feeling very comfortable, to feeling extremely scared is a journey of just 3 or 4 weeks. So when this happened, coaching is all about vulnerability, and vulnerability basically means what is the basic emotion. So I asked myself a question: what is my basic emotion as a coach at that point of time? And I'm talking about March end, when the lockdown looked imminent. Everybody had almost gone in a shell mentally, if not physically, and 24th the lockdown anyway. So what was my basic emotion as a coach? And the beauty is that if you accept your emotion the way it is without qualifying, actually you do better, whatever is the emotion. And I realized my basic emotion was nothing but fear. And fear can be a very debilitating kind of emotion. It actually puts you out of action. And I realized my emotion was fear. Then you ask yourself the next question: what is this fear exactly about? There is a lot of fear. I think, as Ravi very rightly said, that we were very scared about a lot of things we don't know. And it's not about only job or business or anything. It's about, you just felt how much small a speck you are in the whole world. So there was a fear of unknown, but there was a fear And I just decided to dig in a little further. And I said, what am I really scared of? And we actually sat down, me and my wife sat down and we had this discussion. And the honest answer was, the one fear was fear of possibly not able to earn. That was the first fear, and a very real fear, right? When people are all going to be worried about the salaries and going to be all worried about their basics, who is going to, spend on development and coaching and stuff? So there was a fear of possibility of not able to earn. The second fear we also realized was the fear of not being in front of our clients. Okay, and that was a fear. And these two fears played on the mind. I'm of a firm belief that fear and action are mutually exclusive. If you are into action, you will realize that the fear somehow goes away. Whatever action you get into, it's like bicycle. If somebody teaches you bicycle theoretically, you'll be actually scared to ride a bicycle because it doesn't have a balance of its own. And how am I going to? Would I fall? It's only when you start riding the bicycle something happens. So the only action breaks the fear. So what we did was, we reached out. Incidentally, we were completing 5 years of our existence on the first episode. So we reached out to all our clients. And by the way, I'm not sharing my story because there's some success or something. In fact, we are still figuring out what we need to do. I'm just sharing it with this family as a raw emotion, what I've gone through. Perhaps it helps. Yeah. The only action we said, okay, while we may or may not be able to do something about the money part of it because nobody has answers right now, can we do something about being in front of our clients? Because that is also the fear. Can we handle that fear? So we actually just wrote the mails to all our clients, whomsoever we are about saying, as a mark of gratitude, don't worry, we are all entering a tough phase. April and May are going to be no invoice months. Okay, don't worry about it. Just reach out to us in whatever way we can help you. And we just sent out those mails and sat waiting for the replies, so to say. A funny thing happened. People responded, and this is where I go back to what Ravi said about big hearts. People just came back and said that, yes, we need help. And apart from coaching and everything, we ended up doing 30 webinars in April and May. Okay, I'll tell you what is the importance of that from a very personal point of view. When you work with a large corporate, you have a support system of your colleagues and your organization itself. When you work on your own, you have to build your own support system emotionally. So when April and May, if you remember, were the months which were the severe lockdown and the fear was perhaps the highest, we actually did not have that time to think. Because literally every day we were doing a webinar, and just because we were making it pro bono, we still had to prepare for it. So we just did not have time to think. And sometimes not having time to think is a boon, right? So we kept working. The another thing happened again. As I always like to say, that the action always gives you some bonus results, right? The other thing which happened is that we suddenly got very comfortable with this whole medium of doing everything virtually. Because I'm a great fan of doing those in-person workshops and all those things. Coaching always happened on the Zoom call even before pandemics, because you can't travel for a 2-hour coaching to different cities and countries. So that was okay. So this action got us going. Now what I'm going to do is that there are some key learnings, and I don't really know what has changed in the pandemic. So without worrying about what has changed, what has remained constant, what I'm going to do is that next 10-12 minutes that is at my disposal, I'm going to talk about two things. My key learnings about business of coaching and the process of coaching. What is it that I have learned in the last 10 months? By no stretch of imagination, this is something which is everybody has to agree. This is my point of view. Some of it has got nothing to do with pandemic. Some of the learnings just got reinforced, is what I would say. So let me start with the principles of business of coaching first. I'm being talking now for the coaches who are here as guests today about what is this whole business of coaching. Okay, what are the principles? The first principle, incidentally, I actually learned in my IT sales job. By the way, if you have young kids and they are confused about what should one do in the career, tell them that there's a 51-year-old guy sits in Pune who is damn confused even today about his career. So all through my life, the only thing which has been constant is that I have been very confused about my career and what should I be doing. So in one of those confusions, I actually went out of HR and started handling a P&L job. I don't understand technology, but I said I'll sell and execute technology for 3 countries. And that was a phenomenal stint, My coaching started there, and I realized when our people sell technology, they try to tell clients something like, the Java does this and Microsoft does this and all those things, and clients are looking at them as if, these are aliens, actually. And my advantage is that I did not understand a word of technology. Okay. So I started listening to the clients and saying that let's talk what clients want. It's not about what you have to offer. And my first advice to all the coaches out here, and sorry if this advice is too obvious, I think about this Becoming the Person, the book that is written, it's amazing. It's all about the client, finally. So don't really worry about whether this qualifies as a coaching or a consulting or as a mentoring or something. Just help the client. Just listen carefully to what is the problem. Because a client is not interested, nobody's going to come and shout at you saying that, no, you're now entering into mentoring. I hired you as a coach. As long as you're solving a client's problem, you're done. And going back to what Ravi said, I think the work came out. So taking the story forward, the work actually started May end onwards with our surprise. Okay, because the client said, "Hey, listen, this works. So why do we wait? Let's start." And people started working with us. So the year is looking much better than what we were scared of. Funny things happened. Instead of pure play coaching assignments, we did some assignments where companies came and said that, why don't you conduct a program, orient manager as coaches? That is far more relevant than just appointing a few coaches. And I remember doing about 31 webinars for a Hyderabad-based tech company. These are all webinars which are about storytelling. And in this medium, you cannot do a webinar with only slides. It's all about storytelling. How do you engage an audience for 2.5 hours, 3 times? And these learnings are phenomenal. A lot of team coaching started happening, saying that, let's help our team to strategize vision, and then let's do coaching as a side activity, what is required to have. So a lot of different things, but more important thing, do what the client says. Don't worry about whether this is coaching, this is consulting, this is mentoring. Actually, they don't matter. To give a very crude analogy, when I go to the famous Pune Vaishali, I just tell them that I need a dosa crisp or soft. If somebody tomorrow comes from a kitchen and tells me, that we are using the batter which is of this particular rice and all that, I actually don't care. As long as I get the dosa what I wanted. That is the first principle. The second principle, credibility is the only starting point. So don't worry about where you can start from if you are building the business. If you're a good talent acquisition person, start solving some problems. The moment you are able to solve problems with your clients, my own experience is that some of these big companies, they told me, okay, now do this for us. And I said, but I don't know how to do it. Okay, learn and come back. We will wait for you for a while. No, those kind of things happen purely on credibility. To my mind, hard selling never works. Okay, you trying to desperately sell something which you think you have would never ever work. What would work is if you are able to solve some problem. And today I'll give you a 3-point formula for this building credibility. Please be clear what problem are you solving. Please be clear whose problem are you solving. And please be clear how do you know that the problem is solved. Mind you, if these questions sound very simple, if you always answer these questions, whether you are doing a workshop design or a coaching agenda or a consulting, you would not go wrong. It will help a long way in building the credibility. The next is a little, while we talked about a heart and stuff like that, I'm purposely making the point, money matters. Money matters. And I'll tell you why. In IT, when I used to, very early, about 25 years back, I know I'm sounding like a dinosaur, but 25 years back when I used to read the IT CVs, I was trained in one particular way. If you are familiar with the technology industry, our technology youngsters write literally everything in their biodata. So if you look at the biodata, you would actually get a feeling that this person must have a 40 years experience, whereas he has 4, right? The way we were trained to read the CV is that just read the commercial projects in the profile, the client projects, and nothing else actually. Why I'm talking money matters is, to my mind, you can build complex formulas about testing the quality of your work. To my mind, a simple litmus test of quality of your work is whether when your clients pay you. So to that extent, keep an eye on, I always keep a money target. Even this pandemic year, we kept the money target. First of all, it drives you. You have to have a goal. Second is that there's a pride. There's a pride. The sub point that I'm going to tell you today, and it may sound a little funny, but this is what I learned in my sales. You determine what your value is, and don't negotiate. Don't negotiate. I go to my clients, this is what I do. And if there is a genuine project problem, I will do the work pro bono. But I would not adjust my fees, and not because of money factor, because there are some other people who are paying me with trust. The moment I start taking lesser money from somebody who is a new client, I'm asking myself a very simple question. Am I not cheating the people who have been trusting me and paying me my amount? Why am I then charging them? What am I charging them? So be very clear about this thing. And to my mind, money goals are important because it keeps you on the toes. It is a quality check. And second is that you have to stretch yourself. If you really have to realize what you really think is your value, nobody is going to pay you, just like that. So keeping a money value is important to stretch yourself. And I always would recommend all the coaches. Some of them said that I don't need a money. I said, okay, you don't need a money, take it and donate it. The moment you get into that kind of a zone, you start thinking that the laxity is okay because I'm not charging money, and that's not good to you, to your clients. Last principle on the business before I move to the process of coaching is this is a very simple formula. Every time you interact with your clients, just ask one simple question. Am I adding value? I worked in the company called Mphasis, and I worked with a very, very senior person who lives in Pune, who actually was instrumental in bringing a lot of banking outsourcing in India. And when I started on my own, he told me, his name is Dr. PG Kulkarni. PG told me, just remember one thing, just add value to the clients. Rest all will happen, right? So you have to be absolutely honest about it. Am I adding value to my clients? Because if you are not adding in value, get out. One of the assignments I really got out because I really thought that people were using me as a coach more as a lifestyle statement, saying that I have a coach, but nothing was happening. No action was taking place. So in a midterm review, I politely bowed out of the client because I think you finally need to have respect for yourself and your profession. Yeah. The process of coaching, what worked in the last year and what always works, I would say. I would not build on a point of vulnerability because I think everybody has spoken about, and I have spoken it in a couple of earlier chapter sessions, so I would not speak. But to my mind, when you are as a coach, try to be a friend. Don't try to be this wise person who is here to, liberate you from the miseries of your life and that kind of. So don't do that. Don't do that. I have seen sometimes coaches taking themselves too seriously. You have not been hired as a philosopher. You have been hired to help some people who are working in a very tight commercial environment. And the least you can do is be honest, be their friend. Don't worry about the process all the time. It's more about, if you don't know how to help them, tell them how you help them. And it just works wonders, right? The second thing is flexible approach. I had a very interesting assignment this year from one of the conglomerates, and they said that we have implemented Agile. And Agile is very fine, to say and talk, and we have trained all our people on Agile. But there's a huge trauma that the engineering managers are going through. We need to really coach them on an Agile. And we had a dialogue, and after I had multiple dialogues, I told them, look, your people are competent. You have given them so much enough inputs. Please don't give them any more inputs because you will end up confusing them. So we said, okay, what should we do? I said, no, something. The way I look at it, just do one session with them, one coaching session. So no more about, coaching goals, 8 sessions, nothing. I said, just do one session. And it just worked brilliantly. And I said, if they decide to reach to me out again, let them do that. But let's not get imprisoned by some of our processes and, coaching happens this way, there have to be these many sessions, Don't do that. Again, it goes back to my client centricity point. The last point, my favorite one. I think the reason I do coaching because I just love to interact with people. So have an interest in your client as a person. and that works. Now, whether to my mind, credibility and credentials are two completely different things. Don't confuse the two. You need to have a credibility. Whether you have credentials or not is a completely different matter. And I completely agree with Ravi. I mean, whether you are certified coach or not, as long as you follow these principles, coaching always works. And it goes back to the Carl Rogers book, right, on becoming a person. The quality of the human being has a huge impact on the outcome of the process, irrespective of the tools used. And that's the philosophy. So just take a genuine interest in the person whom you're coaching. Don't look at it only mechanically, because if you just follow these, coaching is not rocket science. I know we have a lot of stuff talking about coaching, but actually coaching is a very, very simple intervention. It's a very personal, simple intervention, which is enjoyable for both. And I know with this group, I get excited, but I thought I'll just share a few thoughts what came to my mind. And one of the WhatsApp forwards, incidentally, I received yesterday, I think sums up what I think Ravi was also talking sometime back about last year. Listen to your soul. It's older than your heart and wiser than your mind. Yeah, that's all I have to say. Thank you so much for listening to me patiently for 20 odd minutes on a weekend. Thank you. I'll stop here, Kalpesh. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Yogesh. And I think we don't need to keep saying time and again, what we love about you, Yogesh, is your authenticity, is your ability to connect. And I think the previous sessions that we've had or discussions we've had, we've always left with about how can you just be you rather than wearing that hat of somebody who is come with something to give something. So great. I think, Yogesh, that was beautiful learnings. And I think I love the point. It's about it's about the client more than about what you want to give to them, about what is it that they want, and just being present in that scenario. So really glad, wonderful. Thank you for this insights. We have a lot of questions, by the way, and we're going to move into taking those questions from everyone. And Clifford, here is the first one for you from Pradeep. So Pradeep is asking about what do you think will be the biggest challenge for the organization to have employees back at work, and how do you plan to resolve it as a second part to it?
Sure, I think that's a good question, and I don't think we have the complete answer. Yeah, but yes, see, folks have gone. In fact, it's not something which we've not experienced even now. Though we have 100% of folks engaged and working on the client, client network just now. But folks have moved to towns. One of the things that there have been times that employees, for example, have been uncomfortable to come to the campus in spite of all the kind of communication and but the fact that there is a lot of peer pressure, there is a lot of family pressure, right? Also, from an organization context, we have already, we already have in place a certain amount of policies that have been created to support the hybrid world. Okay. From a group context, and since I'm part of the HRMC of the group also, we have already internally announced that today, from an employee context, we will seriously look at part-time working. We will seriously also look at work from home working, which means that will be a totally different category of working itself. We will actually recruit people henceforward saying that you will work from home. So I think that kind of an employment will be there. See, I think today clients have already begun to to nudge us directly, indirectly, in terms of saying that when are you planning, what is your process, what is your thought? And let's face it, from an ITES perspective, we've obviously added a cost to onto from an infrastructure perspective, from a technology perspective, from campus and all those kind of things. So obviously, if that will possibly come, the discussions will possibly, the way I see it, will soon start. So these are definite. I mean, there are no right, wrong answers, but yes, it is we have told our employees today that when the client requires us, it is the client who will decide where we work.
Okay.
That is very clear. So, and that's something which I think the employees have understood to a great extent. Yes, there is going to be resistance, and then I think we will try to do some nudging with employees, and then of course finally, if the client requires it, the client requires it. There is obviously there would be some humanitarian concerns, obviously, in certain places, but after a while, I think it may possibly become difficult to. That's the way I'm seeing it for now. Not able to really see what's going to happen, but yes, from our internal context, the hybrid world is something which we are ready for.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you, Clifford. And I actually missed out. Pradeep was here online, and I could have asked him only to ask the question directly. But thanks for responding. Shekhar, I see you have a question for Ravi, and why don't I invite you only to ask that question to Ravi, and take it from here. You want to do that, Shekhar?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, Ravi. I don't know if my question was hyperbole. Basically, I picked up that employee engagement is something that Gallup talks a lot about, and somehow or other in the times of COVID, the employee is engaged or not engaged, okay, is something that is more felt than seen. So I was just wanting to understand, given the kind of very innovative work that you people do, and I'm a great admirer of Tata Motors. Just wanted to know, how do you keep people fired up, and how do you sense check their level of engagement?
Shekhar, I must say that I will attempt. I don't think I have an answer for that one. Right?
Right. Welcome.
See, for any engagement, what one would look at normally is the first and the easier, I think, metric is attrition, right? And there are various ways to slice and dice attrition. But in today's world, no one is, there's always great opportunity for good talent and they get poached. But overall, the attrition level across all industries has gone down. So that indicator is out of the window. The other one, actually, where we should worry about, and probably not as you just have passive or unengaged employees. That is more measured in terms of output or result of work. Right? But the reason I say it's a difficult one is it's also so much about how are goals defined, how are objectives agreed, how are actually teams brought together, is there collaboration within the team? And I think all those also influence the output. It's just not the employee's engagement. But yes, if the employee is engaged with the purpose of the larger purpose of the organization, all these will be overcome. Right? So what do we track and what do we try to look at is, are the work being delivered? I think is a big question, right? The other, subtler ones, so timelines, quality, of course, we look at it. But, the markets have gone down, sales, production can happen, but there are other challenges in production. I'll give you a simple example why I say it's been difficult for us to do it. A lot of supplier companies had problems in coming back, especially small companies who supply to larger suppliers who then bring it to us. Because when this migration of labor happened, they struggled the most to come on track. Right? There have been issues around quality, etc., wherever companies have had a large amount of temporary workers. So sales, you can say, is a factor of demand, and there's not been much of demand. So I cannot judge that. Now, manufacturing, they've actually struggled with supplies. There have also been reasons of, China. By the way, there's a huge shortage of electronic parts in the automotive industry today. So, Shekhar, a lot of inputs have become a challenge, right? So, one could have judged the output and say, but that's also a challenge. So, therefore, what do I look at as a metric? When we have employee connects, are people asking questions? Simple. Are they appearing and asking questions? And what kind of question they're asking, right? If they're asking existential questions, you know what is their mindset. If they're asking questions which are slightly larger, more about future, and also in suggestions, there are indications of what is it that they would like to see do. That means they've been thinking about it. Right? So interestingly, this is a conversation I've had with my leaders. I am unable to give I've told them they're all engineers and sometimes it becomes a struggle, can't give a quantitative measure, right? But through how many people are appearing for all employee meetings, how many people are asking questions, if you have silence in the organization and you lost them, hopefully we've not had that. So like I started with my first sentence, I'll end with it. I don't know the answer. Sorry, I rambled.
No, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Great. Thanks, Shekhar, for asking, and thanks, Ravi. I think we've all evolved and we've reached a point where we are okay to say that, yeah, I don't know the answer, but we'll figure it out. And I think that's what has kept all of us going. Any questions from audience? Anyone who is here who wants to ask any questions to Ravi, Clifford, Yogesh, or anybody else wants to add to what Shekhar gave as a question, or Pradeep's question that was there. So please feel free. We want to use more time to engage. We have another 10 minutes while we're here on this platform. And yes, Pradeep, please go ahead.
Yeah. Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for those insightful wisdom sharing. Another question that was there paramount in me in this whole month was, as we are getting over with the lockdowns and coming out of COVID, or so at least it appears now, what do you think would be the immediate and effective role of coaches, especially executive and leadership coaches in your organizations?
Sure, I can take that. Not a problem. So I think I just want to, before Pradeep, if answering your question, I would like to also respond to Shekhar. I think it's, see something which, and I'll give you numbers. In terms of, I remember, and I said we have about 45,000 employees specifically for my vertical. And at one point of time, we had reached an average of about face-to-face connect in the physical world. I'm talking about 10,000 people. We actually monitor it on a very regular basis, where leadership commitment actually is displayed very clearly by going down to floors and connecting. And this is something which we actually publish on a monthly basis, 10,000 face-to-face connect. With the pandemic, 28,000 average 6 months, 28,000 per month, right? Wow. Very clearly, leadership connect, leadership felt the need to connect, and employees felt the need to be there, being reached out, wanted to understand if there are answers to the questions that they had. What should I do? So obviously the amount of, what, and I did not want to share about what we did as an organization because I was trying to project my talk more from a coaching perspective. But the fact that in terms of, 24/7, we already have that set up, but then it was much more in terms of doing counseling, a lot more, fun, getting the family connected, because we are getting into the, the home work environment. So getting the family, all your milestones which were celebrated, whether 15 years, 20 years, being in the organization, the family was connected, got them connected. So I think to a great extent that, and we continue to do our employee sat surveys on a regular basis. And today, of course, you don't require that, Gallup time once in a month or once in a year or once in 6 months. Now we're doing it on a regular basis. You have it on your app, on your mobile, and you're continuously asking people how they're feeling. So I think that is, really positive. Yes, but I can also tell you that attrition, while it dipped, it's already showing. I mean, the last 2-3 months, it's already showing an improvement. Definitely high performers are, already, getting restless. And that's something which will be, the challenge of the future for us. Getting down to what, Pradeep asked, I think, Pradeep, I think there are very clearly new opportunities for coaches. Yep. And obviously, I did talk about it, briefly in terms of what are the new problem areas to solve. But, very clearly, there is a need for us to equip people to make better decision-making skills. Was it something which was there earlier? It was. But today it's much more in this kind of very, very uncertain world, right? Driving of strategic initiatives, because it's not the normal business, right? Today, in fact, on the brink of the financial year, we became a $1 billion organization. Just our vertical I'm talking about. We already have a target of the second billion, right? So how do you maximize critical thinking? How do you develop a proactive attitude towards work, the virtual workplace, and of course the workforce itself, from a management perspective, right? How do you engage and inspire distributed teams? So, for example, a little before, before we actually went into the entire pandemic, is when we started almost like a movement in the organization for our vertical, was in terms of, getting the EC of the organization first, and then of course the leaders. So we're driving a movement of creating authentic leaders within the organization, because we believe that if we can create that set of leaders of authenticity and vulnerability, and people able to display their crucibles out in public, then down the line we have a better teams equipped, right? How do you navigate business dynamics in the virtual world? How do you support anxiety and disengagement due to the digital fatigue itself that is happening, right? I mean, there are, in fact, just a joke, and this is a reality, of course. My wife was getting a new set of specs, and we went to the site. We have this friend and who I've been going for years for my own specs, and I asked him, so Reddy Saab, how are things going on with your business? I was expecting him saying that, sir, problem hai. He said, sir, damn good. He's saying the number of people who are coming and buying glasses, I thought with pandemic my business will go down, but since everybody's online, either on mobile or on computers, the business is good, doing pretty well. So so it's totally unexpected. Redefining career development, I think that's another area very clearly, and by way of coaches, I think today, and you would have heard about the Choluteca Bridge, right? The Choluteca Bridge, where in the Honduras, right, where that was the only bridge which survived in Honduras when they created. It was a great sense of pride. If you look it up, the Choluteca Bridge. But at the end of it, the story is that, and this happened about 20 years ago, not more than that. Because of the hurricane, the water below the bridge changed its course, totally changed its course, which means the bridge was a bridge just without a road that led to it, without a bridge that moved on from it, without the water under it. And that possibly is something like a metaphor for careers today, right? You may define and decide, I want to specialize in an area, but with the kind of changes, and especially with the kind of pandemic that happened, obviously new emerging demands to stay relevant. And finally, I think very important, is the emotional intelligence that is emerging as a key area for leadership development. I think in our organization, I think we are driving a culture of authentic leadership I talked about, and I think helping leaders to express vulnerabilities, to redefine. And I think that's, in summary, I think I have summarized the new redefined role of a coach. Thank you.
Thank you very much, guys.
Great, thanks Pradeep, and thanks Clifford for answering it so well. Manjri, yes, you had a question. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Kalpesh. I actually have a request for Ravindra, for Clifford, Yogesh, and anybody else here, especially you, Kalpesh, because you have access to so many coaches, that I represent MayaCare, which is our organization. I'll tell you a little bit about it, but we have recently started a coaching program within MayaCare, and that is for persons with disability. So it's a very, very new area, and my request is to seek your help in whichever form you feel fit, and where you can support us. So what we have done is that we have a really audacious dream, that the dream is that the entire leadership team of MayaCare, as well as the support staff of MayaCare, in the long run will be persons with disability. So we've been running this organization for 11 years, and it was just a self-funded family kind of organization. This is the first year where we've actually got out and reached out to corporates, and we've got some excellent support from ICICI Lombard for mass distribution, and we're distributing 20,000 masks across India right now. in 15 cities to old age homes, etc. But we've just started this program where right now we had said we will start. We had 5 persons with disability over the years, and they did very well, and they are amazing in wheelchairs. But we thought it was small. We put ourselves a target by November. We will have 50 persons with disability and move forward. But as we stand today, we already have 70 people because they're not stopping. So we started with looking for them. Now we don't have to look for them because people are just approaching us every day and we're unable to stop or say no. And I think all that, Ravindra, you were saying, Clifford, you were saying about remote working. I mean, we are on a different planet where remote working is concerned because all of them are across Maharashtra. Some places you and me may not have heard of, but they're there right now. They come on Zoom calls every week. After some learning, some level of confusion and high levels of confusion on various calls, we've reached a stage where now we have divided them into 3 teams. Our voice team are 20 people who are totally blind, and they are because their voices are good, we call them voice team, and they come on the Zoom call every week. What started recently is that they have started making calls to the elderly people and talking to them for half an hour, 1 hour, for which they get paid. But right now they speak only in Marathi. So the coaching we need for them is that we need them to speak a level of English, which given our other audacious vision to make Mayake available across the world. And some have started making calls to UK, but we want all of them to speak enough English to, speak to the world. So that's one. Second, we have is the persons who can't hear at all, which is the most difficult. And if anybody wants from here or your employees or anyone wants to take on those people to coach, it's the most difficult because their language development is really poor. And that's a big shock for us that we didn't realize how poor it's going to be. But anyway, we are there. And the third one, which is amazing, and that's our data team. And the third is our power team. And they're fantastic because that's where the leaders are coming from already. We have appointed 10 team leaders and we have given them each a coach who's a leader in some form or the other. And it's very basic. All of you are talking at a very high level of coaching and leadership. But what we are looking for is very, very basic. How do you get Google Drive to work and get something, put things together and not mess up and actually be acceptable at the end of it. Because what we've also found is that Oracle, very nice of them, they have come up and they've started helping us doing the training once a month. The Oracle team, and yesterday we had one of the directors from Oracle actually coming for the training program, and they are training them. But what we realized that after the training, everybody says, "Samajh gaya, bahut acha, everything," and they don't know anything after that. They have not understood a lot of things, or they're not able to implement, even if they've understood. So giving these coaches is actually helping. We've just started so that they practice through the month and, the next thing is happening there. So this is really my ask. In whichever form you can help, I'll be most grateful if you can. And as Yogesh said, it's the soul, and what we are realizing time and again that the people who reach out to us are the employees with soul. And the other thing, Yogesh, you said is, it teaches you something new about yourself, right? If you're able to do something like this. So if there is anybody here who can do that, most welcome. And thanks for having me, Kalpesh.
Great. So Manjari, while, I'll go with what Ravi started with. So I may not have a direct answer to your request, but what I can do for sure is, Manjari, I've just shared my mobile number with you in the chat box.
Sure.
I will look at organizing maybe a call between you, me, Jayashree, who is our president, and also all the people who are here, I'm sure will be willing to help in their own capacities. So if anybody has an answer or a response to Manjari, please feel free, or else at least we will connect, look at, what are all the asks that you just mentioned, look at understanding that and see whatever is in our capacity or resources that we have, we will try and bring them together to support. That's what I can promise at this point.
And even right now, Manjari, if you could type your email ID in the chat box, those who are here on this call with us, can reach out to you.
Thank you, Jayashree and Kalpesh.
Because all of them are not our chapter members, so let's have their coordinates.
Right.
I'll type in both the email address and WhatsApp number.
Thank you very much.
Perfect. And what I'm also doing is for all the other members also who are here, who've connected, on this webinar, I've put the email address to reach out to ICF Pune. So I've put connected icfpune.com there. Please feel free and reach out. If you're interested in the chapter, if you're interested to be a part of any of these kind of projects. And Manjari, glad to share that ICF Pune is currently supporting GAP, which is Global Action Against Poverty. And we've taken a year-long project with them. We've coached change makers, and we are on the verge of completing a project with them, which has been very successful. So, no coincidence that there's another request like that which is coming, where we can serve the community and do something to join hands. So we'll be happy to look at whatever possibly we can. And thank you once again for all of you who are here. I would want to invite Jayashree now for a couple of announcements, and also to thank the audience that we've had today. Jayashree needs no introduction, but to all of you who are here, Jayashree is the president of ICF Pune chapter, and she's one of the founding members of ICF Pune. And in the last 3 years as a young chapter, I'm so happy to say that we've grown. We today are recognized and known globally as an ICF Pune chapter, which is making a significant contribution. And Jayashree leads the ship. So Jayashree, over to you.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, Kalpesh. And thank you. I just want to say a few words of gratitude to 3 of our speakers, Clifford and Ravi, and our very own Yogesh. Thank you very much. I think, of course, not just that what you shared was extremely useful, but also the presentations that you created, for example, Clifford and Yogesh. I think even the time and energy that you invested in even creating those presentations, that just says you spent that time for us, and thank you very much. And Ravi, I think your gentle, authentic self that you brought to this meeting, I think we are just, you've just floored all of us, right? So thanks so much. And yes, the title of this session was very cleverly chosen as Manthan, because Sagar Manthan was done, Samudra Manthan was done when the gods felt powerless, and they churned the entire ocean to look for Amrit, the nectar of life. And I think I suppose this is probably going to be just our first session in this entire series of Manthan, where we just look at various things, and so many different great things would come out. I love the way Yogesh, you said, it is the God as well as the demon which is within us, as the optimism and the pessimism. So it's nobody else. It is just from within that we are bringing it out. Thank you all in the audience who decided to spend your Saturday evening with us. It means a lot to us. The couple of announcements that Kalpesh mentioned is, one is we as a chapter are going forward and actually going to organizations offering a session on coaching awareness. That's going to be a pro bono session. And that session is just meant to raise awareness about what coaching is, what coaching is not, what coaching can do for people. So if any one of you in the audience, from the speakers or otherwise, if you feel that ICF Pune can come and deliver a session for you, feel free to reach out to us. We will do that. Second, of course, is next month is going to be the Women's Day month. And we are lining up a series of events which are centered around women as coaches as well as women as coachees. So in that, we're going to organize a coachathon where we would invite each one of you to nominate a woman business leader to receive a gift of coaching hour from an ICF Pune coach. We will soon, of course, reach out to you announcing the exact date and timings and so on. But please start thinking at least one woman leader who you think would benefit from an authentic coaching conversation with a credentialed coach. And of course, watch out for all the events that we will host during the month. Thank you. And yeah, I think that's about it.
Right. Thanks, Jayashree. And what I've done is, because we have a lot of new members here, I have shared a link to the WhatsApp group for ICF Pune Coaches group. Please feel free and be a part of that group. You'll get all the updates. So Jayashree, whatever just mentioned about the corporate sessions, about the women's coachathon session that we are doing, and the other activities that we keep doing at ICF Pune, that group is open for all. You don't necessarily have to be a member of the group. So please be there, be a part of our community, and let's see how we can create an entire win-win for ourselves, for the communities we live in, and for the society as a whole. So thank you once again for everyone to be here. I'm glad and honored to have interacted with all of you, and thank you from ICF Pune to all of you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I forgot
you.
the group picture. Can you just switch your cameras?
Oh, that's very big.
I am sorry. My paycheck from Jayshree will not come if I don't take the group picture. So may I request Jayan sir, Pallavi, Sayan, Vijendra, Poonam to put on your cameras quickly for 1 moment. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. So I'm just going to take the click in on the count of 3. So 1, 2, 3. Thank you. Thank you so much. I have the picture. Thank you.
Thank you.